It's December 1st, we're in the holiday spirit. Let's talk about the Christmas episode. We'll start with the end. Tell me what it was like having that whole cast together. It was the last episode, Perry Gilpin's there. What was the vibe on the set that day? Or those days?
Oh, I wasn't there.
Yeah, exactly. We didn't let Joe come to set.
The writer's strike happened the day before, so I couldn't go to set for that. It was a bummer.
Yeah.
But
It was great. Just we were like, saw the script, and he was like, nah. This stuff was trash. It was great. It was such a fun episode. It was, as you probably just saw, a big one. So it kind of did stretch more over 2 days than most episodes did. It felt more like I don't know, a bit like a conventional episode of TV rather than that kind of all the stress on one night, which was nice because we did get to spread the weight a bit of the episode, and obviously it was amazing. Very
And also just watching Kelsey and Perry work together again and see each other was really special.
Yeah.
Even the table read, the initial table read, the first line Kelsey says to her, I think he started crying. Like he was so touched that she was there. It was really special, and she was so cool. She was so happy. She was so generous. Like I felt so like welcomed into the Frasier family by her. Yeah.
It was funny watching them. It was like no time had passed. She looked amazing also. And by the way, Jackson, you have a British accent, just to be clear.
Now you're putting it on. Yes. Yeah. London version.
Yes. So I guess we'll go back even further. Joe, you can participate in this one. Okay, yeah. Listen, we're in kind of the period where a lot of things are getting rebooted these days, but I think it really was a pleasant surprise when everyone sort of heard Kelsey talk that Frasier was going to be back. Why was this the right time after, it's been almost 20 years, if you guys can believe it, since that finale. Why was it the right time to revisit the character and read it in a new circumstance?
talking to Kelsey, I mean, this has been, I think we started working this 5-6 years ago now. It was always, he loved playing that character. And he loved making people laugh. And he just felt like it was time for a genuinely fun, light multicam to come back. Because the multicam medium, like those shows like that, or Seinfeld, or Real Raymond, they've gone a little out of fashion. Not because people don't want them, but because some people don't want to make them, or people, a lot of people shrug their shoulders at a multicam. But when it's done really well, and nobody does them better than Kelsey, they're really fun to watch, and they're really fun to perform in and to write for. So I think he was just ready to get back out there and just do it. And he's so good at just slipping into that, because you assume Kelsey, oh, he's Frasier when he's off screen. He's the same guy.
Right.
But he's not, because like you walk by him in the hall, he's like, hey, what's going on, man? Well, Frasier doesn't talk like that. Say something erudite. And he slips in, and he like turns, and he gets a laugh off a wink or a smile, and it's just a medium build for him. So I think we're just lucky that he wants to do it, and then everyone else around him just rises to that occasion with him.
How did you and Chris Harris, who's not here, your co-showrunner, how did
He's
you...
not here.
He's not here. That's not him back.
No, he didn't want to.
How did you collaborate with Kelsey in terms of like where, we didn't watch the first one on this one, but we can tell what the circumstances are, obviously, in terms of where Frasier is now, the fact that he's going to be living back in Boston with Freddie, etc., working at Harvard.
We knew from the beginning, the one thing we knew going in, because they told us before we pitched, the one thing Kelsey's most passionate about is he wants to reconnect with his son. Because if you saw the original show, you know that the character of Freddie was in one episode a year for 11 years. So he wasn't a hands-on dad. He wasn't a bad dad, but you'd see references, oh, I flew to Boston to see Freddie for his birthday, or he'd be on the phone with him, but you never saw him. So clearly there was a distance there. So the whole idea was the distance just got so much bigger than Frasier ever recognized, and he had to fix it because the whole premise and catalyst of the original Frasier was he has a bad relationship with his dad.
Right.
And there's no way to fix it until they're forced together, and they have to work through it, which is kind of what we're doing now. Freddie doesn't want to be living with his dad, but his dad wants that same relationship he formed with his dad, and he's going to force Freddie, kicking and screaming, into it. So we knew that was going to be it. And then the other things were just sort of details. Like, at one point, they were going to be living in New York. At one point, it was all different things. But then Kelsey was like, I want to go back to Boston. Freddie probably never left Boston. I have things I'd like to rectify in Boston, fix some things that I wish I'd done better. So he decided that, and it all kind of fell into place.
And for you two, I mean, I'm assuming you did, obviously. Was Frasier big over?
Yeah. It definitely, it was sort of slightly before my time in terms of just.
Oh, you're so young. So young and handsome.
But it's kind of one of those shows that has been, I feel like every generation has kind of caught on to it,
Right.
whether you watched it live, or you caught it later on. So I at 2 years old. But as a young man, I didn't really know. I wasn't familiar with it, but I definitely caught it kind of going in my teens, and everyone has that, different time at which you found it. And I became a fan kind of in my teens and early 20s. As I said before, I'm definitely not a super fan. I've met super fans. I know what I don't know, so I'll hold my hand up there. But I have seen every episode, so that counts. But through doing the show, I developed such a huge fondness, especially going back and rewatching the series from the beginning. I kind of discovered how many layers there are to that original show, and how based it is in that relationship between Martin and Frasier, and attempts to kind of rectify that, and how we were kind of basing it in the same world, and that was it was a lot of fun, but it was also very inspiring.
By the way, Freddie's bird was like a very famous episode of Cheers.
Yeah.
Even. Yeah. That's how far back the character, way before your time.
Yes,
But
yeah.
Way.
decades. Yes. That was known as Frederick. And Jess, what about you? Were you a big fan? How did you get on board with
I
that?
mean, kind of similar to Jack. Yes, I am, yeah. Anyway, it was a bit in the periphery of my childhood. Like, it was kind of like the adult sitcom. But it's so funny? There's this New Yorker article that came out. Did you guys see this? It was like, why millennials love Frasier. And it was saying, like, because he's a foodie, just like you. He likes obscure music, just like you. And then at the end, it's like, he's the same age you are. Like, when Frasier started, he was in his 30s. And most millennials are in their 30s now. And it's kind of like, had this strange renaissance among tons of my friends.
Yeah.
Especially during COVID.
Yeah,
Yeah.
massive. Yeah, binge
Yeah.
watching.
Yeah.
By the way, I also rewatched Frasier, and I'm not a millennial during COVID, so it does span generations.
Yeah.
Joe, who are you writing for when you do a reboot of Frasier? Is it a younger audience? Is it people who grew up with the character?
For me, I am a super fan. I wrote it for me. Like, I've seen every episode hundreds of times. I can answer any obscure trivia you have. So when it came out that it was happening, I just wanted to make something that I would enjoy. Because I know if I enjoy it, the people like me will enjoy it, which is all I really care about. Because if I wasn't a part of it, I would probably be like the masses and just be skeptical. Like, why are they doing this? The show is perfect. Don't ruin it. So I am paralyzed by the fear that I could kill the thing I love most in the world, which I don't want to do. So I've watched all of our episodes. We made all 10 multiple times, and I can keep watching them. And I don't want to sound self-indulgent, but I enjoy them, just like I do the old ones. Chris Harris, who I did the show with, would regularly come into my office while we're shooting, and I'd be eating lunch, watching original Frasier episodes, which is what I'm a psycho. Why are you watching this? We're working on it. It's like, I know, but this is the one where they go to ski lodge. This is fun. I know, it's a good one. It's a good one. So I think the original fans, my hope from the stupid deep dives I do on Reddit, they seem to appreciate it and like it. But I also think anybody new could come to it because the shows, like the original, the characters are very well defined. You don't need to know the original to like this one. I think it helps. I think if you're an original fan, you'll hopefully still be a fan. And if we've turned people off, then I failed. Well, I'm sorry. We've all failed.
Yeah.
I assume you do, though, have to strike a little bit of a balance where there's enough callbacks to the original.
I've had many arguments with Chris about this. So I'll try and put in a joke like that references something Bulldog did once. And Chris will very kindly say, what if we do a joke that everyone will appreciate? So you kind of have to find the balance of, it can be a callback, but it should also stand on its own. Like, it should be an enjoyable joke for somebody who isn't insane like you are.
Right.
If that makes sense.
For you two, how do you develop Freddie in that he is his own character. He's not the Freddie as a kid. He's not another version of Martin Crane from the original. Like, how do you make him your own?
That's a very good question. I'm still figuring that out. For me, it was really about, yes, I definitely took a lot of inspiration from John Mahoney and his their relationship, how their dynamic played out over the course of the whole series. But at the same time, you got to remember that Freddie is, a blend of Frasier and Lilith. He's got bits. He's got some Martin in there for sure. Like, we definitely want to feel that parallel. But at the same time, he is his own person. He's had his own life experiences. I read something recently where someone was like, "How did the kid who was a goth turn into this firefighter guy?" And I was like, "You never saw photos of me as a kid." There's definitely, everyone has this evolutionary process they go through, especially their teens, their 20s, and figuring out who they are, finding their identity. The fact that Freddie, went followed in Frasier's footsteps to a great degree, went to Harvard, and then at some point in that process started to figure out who he was as a human being. I think what's so fun about Freddie in the original series is kind of every time he shows up, he's a little bit different. He's got, he's going through his golf days, he's having his bum days. Like, everything is, each time we see him is part of his development, and we've then got a 20-year gap to fill in the blanks, and he's gone through this a whole bunch of changes, which definitely inform his relationship with his dad. Like, that's at the center of it, I think, is the gap between father and son, the gap that, whatever that meant to Freddie, however he sees his dad, has evolved and changed. And I said this before, I didn't want to go into the whole series being like, I hate my dad and he abandoned me, and I don't think Freddie's holding on to that.
Right.
But there's definitely an element of, like, their relationship isn't what either of them would want it to be. And how you fix that, how you start to mend those bridges, is kind of really what I've been focusing on when I approach the character Freddie, is to think about, like, what would I feel like in his shoes with regards to his relationship with Frasier, and how would I go about trying to fix that, and what would be the impediments, both internally and externally, to that sort of kind of fix.
And you do see a big evolution even from that pilot episode to the finale, which we just watched.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then, I guess the benefit of the Eve character is that she's not a Daphne. She's not really a Roz. So, like, do you really, was it easier for you to make it your own?
Yeah, I guess so. It was so much in the writing. Like, it kind of just bounced off the page. I knew that she, He's been to work for me. I was just a vessel for his words. I don't know. It was, in a way, there's a touch of a Daphne, just in that she's a bit of a buffer between the father and son, and in some ways lives with them.
Personality is a little different.
Absolutely. Which I'm grateful that I'm not trying to, do a thing that's been done very well by
also,
someone
that
else.
role before we cast you wasn't nearly as big, and then you came in and were so good. Like, you kept getting more and more stuff. It's just a different. It was such a different energy because it's not Daphne. It's not. We weren't trying to replace anybody. Nobody's a facsimile of those other people. But Eve works as just like somebody that honestly works as a confidant for both Freddie and Frasier. And they both feel comfortable because she's so easygoing and she's so breezy and she's not judgmental and she's got so much going on in her own life, but she can put that aside for these other two guys. Like, you're very good, Jess.
Oh my God, thank you.
You're welcome. So you're very welcome. Jess, you're fine. You're doing a fine job. Too late.
Thank you.
Jack, nobody applaud for you.
I know.
No, I noticed that. It's so weird.
Can you tell me, we saw Kelsey at the introducing these two episodes. Obviously we can't not talk about him. He is Frasier. What was it like working with him? Did you have to form a little bit of a more special relationship playing his son? How does the rapport work between the two of you, the three of you?
You were in his house for like a month before this, right?
Yeah,
Were you going to be his son?
we went deep characters.
Method.
No, Kelsey, the most wonderful thing I think as an actor coming into an experience like this is to have somebody at the helm who you have boundless faith in, right? Like, it's any pilot of any show is very scary because you're creating something from scratch and you're like finding the tone and you're trying to figure out how this world is going to work and who these people are and what relationships are, and to have an epicenter that is completely grounded and knows exactly what the tone is, who that character is, what the world of the show is so comforting as just across the board as an actor. Specifically for me, working with Kelsey, I had so much fun because of that safety, because of that feeling that I could explore and play and try stuff, and he would guide and help, and there was never any feeling of no, that's not really Frasier, or that's not really right. It would be kind of teaching by showing to a great extent. Like he just is, again, as we discussed, he isn't Frasier outside of Frasier, but when you get him on that set and you're rehearsing with him, it's just like, oh, this feels so natural. And my comparison has always been to music, where I think that comedy it has a rhythm, it has a flow, it has a music that varies from show to show, from type of comedy to comedy, to multicam, single cam, whatever. And Frasier is its own special song. It has its own special rhythm and cadence and flow, and it takes some figuring out. But Kelsey invented that rhythm. Like, he created the language that we're all talking. So to have him there to sort of catch the wrong notes was just like a wonderful safety net you don't get really in any other anything I've experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah, he was so grateful and very tender. Everything, every day he was just really happy to be there, and really I don't know, there was just something going on with him. He was so tender. He loved that we were doing this.
It's so unbelievable to think that it's not like I'm doing the reboot for money and he just wants to do it because he doesn't need to do it, and he just loves that character and he loves performing and he loves. It's just fun to watch.
If you ever came to a taping of the show, he talked to the audience beforehand, and his level of emotional investment, not just in the character, but the show and the world, is palpable. It's so
he can't do that opening without crying.
No,
and it's always sincere.
We cry every day.
Yeah.
Every taping, and out of gratitude, out of feeling like it was, he couldn't believe that this character was still affecting people. And I felt like by the end of the season, I live in Canada. I'm Canadian, and
what?
And I'll leave. Anyway, he by the end of the show, I felt like he was my LA dad. He was just so warm. I couldn't have asked for a better leader.
In terms of him being the keeper of the show in a way, was there anything that specific that he wanted to hold on in terms of the character, Joe, that I want him to, he has to still be a professor, still has to be sort of an academic. I want something really specific that's been a through line the whole way through?
I mean, as far as stars go of shows, he's very easygoing. He's very, it's not that he's malleable, but he'll listen to any idea you have. He's not very firm on a lot. What he's firm on, he truly believes in. If you have a line, Frasier wouldn't say that. It's great, you know the character better than I do.
Yeah.
Barely. But you do, so we'll listen to you. His big thing for the new series was he just feels like Frasier is older, and he's got a little more wisdom, and he's a little bit looser. So he can still be triggered by a wine that isn't stored correctly or something, or an opera that's not the one. But he doesn't need to show his affluence anymore. He doesn't need to be wearing those big boxy Armani suits to show that he's rich. He's a little more comfortable where he is. So I think there's something nice about that slightly mellower Frasier that isn't as high strung, but can be high strung, like the Christmas party when he needs to, because it's still in his bones. He can't not be that guy. But he tries to be a little more, which is why he's wearing jeans, which people are very upset about. But he can wear jeans. He wants to be comfortable now.
Is it also just, we're not in the 90s anymore?
We're not in the 90s anymore. People wear jeans.
Or the 80s for that matter,
Yeah.
back when the character first started. But yeah, is there something different just about being in this time where things have just changed?
The thing with Frasier to me is that even if you watch the old one now, it's kind of timeless. They don't make topical references. They don't do pop culture jokes. So you can watch it. And aside from like that episode where they're writing a book and you see a giant laptop, that show could have happened not that long ago. Like it still feels, the storylines are still funny and witty, and they don't rely on like news of the day or whatever. And that's the same thing we tried to do with this one. There is no agenda. There's nothing we're trying to get. It's just, here's a funny situation. What do we do? Let's set it up. Let's get the ball all the way up the hill, and then let it go rolling down and let Frasier do his thing. And it's the best way to make TV that'll end up standing the test of time, hopefully.
Tell me about tossed salad and scrambled eggs, though. We have to just, it's the hallmark of the show in a weird way. Like, was that part, it had to be redone, though, right? We had to keep it.
I tried so hard to rewrite the lyrics because I wanted the money for it. Like, I wanted the lyricist. And he said no. But he did say he wanted to redo it because he wanted, and the first time I heard it, I was like, no, I want the original. I miss the original.
Yeah.
And then I kept listening to it, it's mellower, it's jazzier, and it's just like more laid back. He's just not trying as hard. And it totally fits the new show. When we first aired, when we were doing the live tapings and we showed the pilot, we didn't have the new version yet. So we'd play the old one, and it worked over the tag. Like that old version worked. And it was just like, oh, this does feel right. So him wanting to do a new version and like not update it, but like just make it more to his vibe and style now.
Right.
It just makes, like I was like, but he's done that a number of times where he says something and you're like, hey, I don't know, it works so well. And then he does it and it's great. He wanted Nick Lyndhurst to play Alan, and Chris and I, we didn't know who Nick was because he's a big UK person, but he's not in any American shows, and I'd only seen glimpses of Only Fools and Horses. So when Kelsey's like, oh, he's gonna be a regular, he's gonna be my best friend. Like, who is this? And he comes in and he knocks it out of the park. Like, he's so good. So you just kind of, at some point, you just have to blindly trust what Kelsey says because he's batting a really high average with these things that he chooses to do.
Did obviously they knew each other
prior. They did Man of La Mancha a couple years ago.
Ah.
So like 3 years ago, like when Chris and I are still working on the pilot, he's like, by the way, Nick's gonna play Alan. Like, who? He's gonna do what? And he knew then, and we just kept trying to write to him, and Nick flew in to just do a screen test so the CBS people could see him. He was literally in the States for like 10 hours, and we met him, and he blew everyone away. Like, he sat down, he read like 6 lines, he's like, oh yeah, that's Alan. Yeah, Kelsey was right.
Aww.
He knows what Frasier is, and he knows what's gonna work, and he just has not been wrong much about it.
So now that this first season is done, and like I said, we just saw the last 2 episodes, as a whole, what are you proudest of? You guys want to go down the line in terms of getting it's one thing to say, oh, I'm going to bring Frasier back, but it's done, it's 10 episodes, and it's here.
I'm very proud of the evolution because I think any show, Jack made the point that doing a pilot from scratch is very hard. So my biggest part of advice is don't do it from scratch. Do it around a beloved character of 30 years. But there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress that goes into what are you going to do that's even close to what the original did? What are you going to do that's going to elevate it or make it worth watching or make it feel like it's not just some bland facsimile of the original? So I feel like having a new cast of characters around him that all came up to his speed so quickly. Like those first couple, I feel like we get our footing, and then by episode 5 or 6, I feel like it just flies. And you could drop any of those into an old season of Frasier and be like, oh yeah, that's that episode where there was a bee. And it just feels like, okay, there's a funny situation. There's no more exposition. The characters are very well defined. I feel like I'm very happy with 10. Like it all culminated. All of them came together, and I think it leaves the door open and sets a very good groundwork for hopefully a season 2 of where it can go. Freddie and Frasier are still not seeing completely eye to eye, but you feel like there's at least a spark of, oh, there can be a relationship there now. And same with everybody else. They're all just, to me, finding the connections of all the characters. Like, I have not seen a scene with Eve and Olivia yet, or I haven't seen a scene with Alan and Freddie yet. And I'm excited to do those kinds of things because I think these characters can handle it. They can all take on more as they've shown as the season goes on. Go ahead and answer now, you two. What do you got?
Well, I'll add on a special bonus. So what are you proudest of, and where would you like to see the characters go from here?
I mean, my proudest moments are when I really see that we're playing up there, like when I can see that we're a bit loose and we're trusting ourselves. Because at the beginning, I mean, it's scary. A lot of us had never done multicam before. I had never done multicam. And it's a totally different process. You shoot an episode in like 4 to 5 hours. It's pretty wild. You get like 2 to 3 takes of a scene. And so when you start to trust the process a little bit more and also trust yourself and your character, because like Jack said, like in a pilot, you don't necessarily know exactly where this is going, who I am yet.
Right. No idea. Like,
yeah,
exactly.
actually no idea. But then by the end of the season, when you start to be like, oh, it's settling in and I can see it, like I could feel it with myself, but I could see it with all of us, and that's really cool to watch. What was the second question?
Where you would like to see Eve from here?
I kind of like to see Eve, maybe in like an acting class. We love watching Eve act. But also like, I'm curious as her baby starts to get older, like what her life's gonna look like. Because obviously I don't have kids, but I can imagine when my kid's like a toddler, what's my life gonna look like? Is it gonna be more free? I don't know. And maybe a little love plot line, we'll see.
You writing this down, Joe?
I was going to send the baby to boarding school, so this is news to me. That kid's going to be part of the
No,
show.
it's the baby anymore.
Yeah,
It's
it's
the
gonna
baby.
figure it out. Yeah, I mean, I think Jess kind of hit it on the head. I think the proudest thing for me is just the feeling throughout the season of finding our feet, getting those relationships. There's the episode 6, I think, the blind date one, was really fun. That was I think the most fun I had shooting, because it was kind of a classic Frasier, fast episode in the sense that, there's just a lot of, that miscommunication, misunderstanding. There were no swinging doors. I feel like there should have been.
I never don't have doors in that part. It's a mistake.
into and out of the kitchen and whatnot. And that experience shooting that episode is probably my kind of proudest, of like getting to play with Kelsey and getting to figure out that dynamic between the two of them in a very kind of close, contained moment. Really, the whole episode pretty much is that one evening. So that kind of, to answer the second part of your question, kind of set me up for like, oh, this could be really exciting to delve into the dynamic between these two in really kind of any scenario. Like the most fun that you have is as an actor, I think, is kind of when the premise itself is relatively straightforward. Like that episode, there is a misunderstanding as to whose blind date this lady is. Go. And that is so simple. It's so neat, and it just means that you get to have a lot of fun without getting too concerned about plot or anything that's kind of getting in the way of, or confusing the audience. It's really like we all understand what we're doing here, and we're on board. And now let's see how you guys play with the tools you've been given, and that kind of and also what Joe was talking about, and kind of finding those moments with the other characters, developing those relationships and those rapports. That's what I'm most excited about for
Joe, want to do the last word?
No, I just the best versions of the original Frasier when you don't need a punchline because the premise is so clearly set up and the ball's just rolling. And that's what I know Chris and the whole, those are just strive for. If you can get a laugh on a look or just the situation without saying anything, that's the height of theatrical comedy. That's us putting on a play every week. And if we could do the whole episode not saying anything and get laughs, like that's a dream come true. So I love that. I love that stuff, and we're just trying to achieve some close. We're not going to hit that, but I'd love to get close.
I think you definitely have. Thank you so much, you guys. Frasier is premiering